Thanks, Tim. Now it is.
All right. Casey, your turn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have planned?
All right, perfect. This is my fiance, Eric Ward.
Hi, Eric.
I'm from Littleton, and I also am a teacher at Shaker Lane for the past, I've worked in the district for the past 5 years, but I've been a second grade teacher. This is my first year, and I've been at Shaker Lane for the past 3 years. And due to COVID-19, Eric and I's wedding was unfortunately canceled. We weren't able to have the wedding that we've been planning, so we were hoping to just do a quick vow ceremony with our immediate families at Long Lake on our original wedding date. So it would probably just be about 10 people, quick little 15 minutes at most. We wouldn't be doing anything special at the lake. We would just be standing there, really. And after talking to Diane Crory, she was saying that it might be difficult because people would be there, and we don't care if there are people in the background or not. We're fine with that. That's pretty much what we wanted to do.
Okay, so just for the record, I just want to make sure you said nothing special.
Nothing special. No.
Just the vow.
Just your vows?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let the other commissioners talk first. I'm not curious to where we'll go with this. Fred?
I think it's great. I mean, I've known Casey for a long time. She's a wonderful woman, sorry. My daughter loved doing stuff with you when she interned. And my wife saw this picture tonight. She's like, I love Casey. So I'm all for it. I think it would be great.
Thank you.
Sean?
I think it's a great idea as long as we don't violate any of the Board of Health, social distancing stuff. I think it's a great idea. And I don't know what phase we're going to even be in by July 7th. What was the date?
It's a good point.
Is it July or is it June?
July.
Yeah, so just as long as whatever phase we're in, things don't get violated. Good luck.
Mike?
I agree with Sean. Just as long as, I think it's a great idea as long as we can meet the guidelines that are in place at that current time.
Did you say what time you were planning?
We were hoping to do around 3 o'clock, which I know that might be kind of a busy time at the beach, so I don't know if that affects it at all, but we're open to whatever time you guys would let us do it.
Okay. Tim, do you have any input as far as timing? And I mean, I agree with, guidelines, and I can tell by you guys nodding your heads, you seem to be all right with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything I would just worry about it being too crowded, more for you guys and, you guys to have a nice ceremony or, Tim, what do you think?
So what I would suggest is it's Friday. It's going to be 3 o'clock. Fridays are kind of hit or miss. But if Casey wants to come down to the beach and we'll take a look, my immediate knee-jerk reaction is we'll put up warning that we're going to be doing it. And I think that we can use some of our cones and our barricades, and we'll clear off the Camp T side of the beach at 2:45. Most people, I think, should be extremely understanding of what's going on. They can do their ceremony. They can, have that area, which we can definitely do. I don't see an issue with that happening. We did the same thing when we had cornhole last year. We would just notify people it was there and then clear that side of the beach off. So, no, I think it's completely manageable, and we'll do whatever it takes to help them get it done.
Okay. Awesome. Do we have we don't have any rental fees or anything that we need to worry about, right?
So we do typically do $25 an hour, breaking the bank, kids. So, that's up to you guys if you want to, waive that or charge that.
I'll make a motion to waive any fees.
Yeah, it's 15 minutes, right? So
I want a 4-hour minimum. A motion to waive any fees for the ceremony.
Second.
Okay, hold on. We can do a whole thing together. All right.
So I'll entertain a motion to waive the fees and allow them an area of the beach on July 17th. It was.
Yep.
at 3 o'clock, or you work with Tim on that. We'll say 3 o'clock, but that's subject to change.
Perfect. And Mike, if you're okay with it, can we use one of the shoulder days just as the event of, God forbid, there's any more rain and this wedding gets pushed somewhere else? Are you guys okay with our discretion on that?
Yes, if you need a rain date, I'm okay with that. I can't imagine any of the other commissioners are not.
Okay. So I'll make a motion now.
Sure.
I'll second
You
it.
got all that?
You said a lot. Make a motion to allow Casey and her fiance use of the beach on July 17th or a rain date to be determined if necessary. And I further motion to waive any fees.
Well done.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Fred,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
I am also an aye. Congratulations, and hopefully you have a great day.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you think you'd be talking about barricades for your wedding?
What?
Nope.
Did you think you'd be talking about having to put up barricades for your wedding party?
No, definitely not. But
So
it's all
Casey,
right.
if you can come down to Long Lake in the next couple days, I'll bring the form down there just so it's official and I can lock it into the calendar. And then we can I'll show you the area I have in mind if you had something different in mind, and we'll just get all the logistics worked out so you can be at ease and put your mind to rest.
Perfect. Thank you. Are you there between
Froze.
certain times?
Tim,
Did he freeze?
He's not sure.
he's frozen.
He's there most of the time.
He is
Give him
there most of the time. You can email. All of our emails are up on the website. So his is T.
That face.
What'd you say?
Tim's face.
I know. It's T. Mahowski, which is Michael without the E and a ski.
Oh, boy.
I know.
His name's on the screen.
Yeah.
It
Or was.
T.
I
Mahowski
have it. I think I
at
saw the last email.
littletonma.org. So, yeah.
You didn't know that his job at Disney was one of those still life mannequin people.
I'm in the basement this evening. The Wi-Fi is spotty down here. All right, I'll see you this week whenever you get a chance, Casey.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
No worries.
Good luck.
Take it easy.
Aye.
Take care.
All right. So next on the agenda is the requesting the use of Fay Park for services for the First Church Unitarian. I have Laura Hoke on this. I don't see her in here.
She's not. So I talked
Okay.
to her today. So she didn't want to make an official request. So she was just kind of like testing the waters to see what was available. So she said, at this time, it doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do just because we're not able to, provide space for large groups, essentially. So maybe later on down the phases, they might come talk to us possibly. But a lot of the churches have the ability to start doing services. They have guidelines themselves. So, realistically, they're probably following those policies, but I know you can serve more people if you can do it outside. So I think that's what her inquiry was. So at this point, no decision has to be made unless you want to talk about any of these other special event requests that come in. I know Casey's is a very small group, but there are people that have been asking, if they could use things. So it's kind of up to you guys if you want to make any sort of motion in that aspect, or if you just want to wait till they, the requests come along and we tackle them, one at a time. It's up to you guys.
My preference would be to wait and see what what phases we're in when they want to do this type of thing. But I won't be here, so the rest of you guys can discuss that.
Touche.
I concur with Mike. Let's wait till we have specifics before we make any motions or vote.
I agree.
Okay.
All right. Next on the agenda, discussion of the Man Triathlon. They're looking to run a virtual program this year, and from the emails I've seen, and it's up here right now, they want to use the typical swim course that would be set up in the lake.
I'm not, well, in the Facebook.
Oh, no, that's right.
Yeah, information they
All
have on there. They're talking about either doing the regular course or setting up a lap course. I think Tim has had more conversation with some of the Rotary members on this. But just since this is something that does affect the beach and it's something we're trying to be really cautious about, you know, in the middle of this pandemic, I wanted to make sure that you all were aware and that we could have that conversation. So Tim, if you want to talk about it a little bit more as far as the conversations you've had with the Rotary.
Yeah, so I actually just saw Mark Saucier yesterday, and I still owe him a phone call on this particular thing, as well as the road race. So this was just kind of a post. I had sent it to Alicia and the Chiefs the other day. We actually have not spoken to anyone in regards to this. But as far as this goes, I don't know which way we're going to end up.
Oh, Saul, can you mute? I got him. Okay, go ahead, Tim.
So as far as it goes, I don't necessarily which way they're going with this or what we're going to do. The reason I sent this out is, you know, I hadn't talked to anybody at this point. The regular swim course could be set up. There could also be a 50-yard lap course inside the Long Lake swim area. You know, I don't necessarily agree with the 50-yard lap course inside the swim area because, you know, number one, we still don't have lifeguards there. Number two, you know, people who are in the swim box are there to play with their kids and swim. It's not necessarily a place for somebody to be trying to do a triathlon time or even a triathlon distance, you know, to do. The other thing is we don't have any control over who's going to show up, what time they're going to show up, or what they're going to be doing. My hesitation that I spoke with Chief Wisniewski about the long course is that, you know, while we do have a lot of open water swimmers that come down there and do the course on a regular basis, we also have people who go out there and, you know, it's it's scary sometimes because, you know, a lot of the people who go out to attempt the triathlon course at times are not triathletes. It might be their first time doing it. You know, you don't necessarily know if somebody's just doing it virtually because they're not necessarily ready to do a real triathlon, so they're testing the proverbial water. So I just think that there's some safety aspects that we would need to discuss. There's some aspects in regards to, you know, is there going to be a group of people who decide to show up in a large group and do it together? So all of these things are things that need to be discussed before I could necessarily say that I could back that. We're definitely not going to have the lifeguards out there to, you know, help anybody out in the event that an emergency did happen. And, you know, as far as the fire department goes, I also don't know, I can't speak for Scott as to what his feeling would be, but you know, if there's people out there randomly doing the tri course and something, you know, happens, we have medical emergencies that occur during the actual triathlon. You know, there's some concern about that, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so sounds like there's more discussions that need to be had before we really decide on anything.
Yep.
I don't really have any questions at this point. I don't know if anyone else does.
I think I was just going to mention, I think if anything, if, you know, if one of us can do it, or if one of you guys wants to reach out to the Rotary and go to one of the Wednesday morning meetings and kind of bring back some feedback, or I can do that. But, you know, I think definitely before this happens, you know, probably in the July meeting that we should invite them and have that conversation on what the ground rules should be if we're going to, you know, endorse it. But the other thing is like, you know, if they're going to also have people doing the roads, I understand, you know, it says we don't want to race or anything. You know, I think the PD needs to be involved in that discussion as well, which I don't know if they've had that conversation.
Well, they don't. My interpretation of what they have here is, are they're going to be riding the actual course, Or I thought it would just be of equal length or something like that.
I don't know.
I don't
Okay,
have-
well, I think, I mean, my feeling is that they need something from us, so they should come to our meeting. I think you're stretched thin enough. I don't think sending you to their meeting on a Wednesday morning is probably the best use of your time, given what we're up against at this point.
Yep.
So I would say invite them to the next meeting, and we can have the discussion then. If they need anything before that, then I suppose they probably should have been at this meeting.
Okay. I'll send an email out to them a little bit later.
Okay. All right. Now to the big agenda item. So we have under the director's report, the main topic we'll be discussing is field usage and the guidelines that just came out. So we want to take a look at the state guidelines, see how they're going to affect our parks and facilities and programs, and then we need to discuss the phase 2 operations for the athletic fields, parks, playgrounds, and basketball courts. I know we've had inquiries about, I'd say 2 out of 3 of them. Myself, I haven't heard anyone pining to use the playgrounds yet, although I'm sure there are people out there. But, you know, athletic fields are big now that sports teams are approved to participate in practices. And I know some individuals have been looking to get on the basketball courts. So I guess, Alicia, you're going to lead this under the director's report, lead the discussion? Yep. Okay.
Alicia, can I just throw out the same disclaimer I did in the working group today?
Absolutely.
So, you know, as we've sat with the state in these working groups and as we've done, you know, these hours upon hours of research and figuring this out to get it right, just like the governor has stated, and just like the Board of Health have stated, just because we are in a phase does not mean that we have to move to that phase. You know, we have to make sure that the policies are in place. We have to make sure that the individuals who are charged with doing said activity or running said park or field or anything else have the proper measures put in place, whether it be porta potties or hand sanitizing stations or distancing boxes that are required. So I just want everybody to remember that, you know, we are in phase 2, but if we're not ready to be in phase 2, we don't have to be in phase 2. And as, you know, members of the town, the reason that we wanted to have the COVID working group was so that the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, Park Commission, the chiefs, and anybody else who had a voice in this could be heard and could put an equal, you know, input, and we could make the decision as a town entity rather than one governing body. I sent you guys a news story this morning. I hope all of you watched it, the 4 minutes of it. I think that there was a lot to be said as far as some of the comments that were made in it. If you haven't watched it, like I said, it's only 4 minutes. The last 30 minutes kind of hit the nail on the head as far as, you know, what we should be doing moving into the next phases. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there so that we can be perfectly clear because, you know, as Mike just said, we are stretched pretty thin right now. And a lot of what we're talking about are parks and fields and stuff that we do not normally staff. And knowing what we know about the beach and knowing what we know about the camp, you know, speaking for us, some of this stuff is going to be very hard to quote unquote police. And, you know, none of us have had a discussion with Chief Pernard yet over whether they are going to also help police it as well as the Board of Health. So just wanted to throw those things out there before we started this conversation.
You pretty much covered everything for me.
Cool. Cool.
All right. So the way that I kind of have this set up is we went through and we made some suggested policies. And then, yes, we can talk about some of the individual pieces of the state guidelines. So the first one that we had up there, and I wanted to start with the policies simply for the fact that it's kind of a condensed version of what the expectations are, not only of us as facility operators, but also of the activity organizers. So this, Jen Davis at Peabody Rec created this for Peabody So this was just kind of a start of what a possible policy could look like for the athletic fields. So a couple of the big pieces on here is that each organization has to submit a safety plan along with guidelines for COVID-19, because a lot of the, and we'll go through and we'll look at these, it's we have responsibilities as a facility operator, and they have responsibilities for the kids that are part of their organization. So it's kind of that meeting us halfway to show that they've actually thought about these processes, that they've talked to their coaches, that they're prepared to have the extra PPE or hand sanitizer, whatever equipment is needed, to work with the kids. At this point in time in this phase 2, the max group size is still 10. And that includes the athletes, the coaches, the staff, volunteers. So it has to be a solid group of 10 at this point in time. The one area where there's a little bit of flexibility is that if you're on a open field or a larger basketball court, if you can maintain 20 feet from another group, there could be another group of 10 on, within that space, and so on and so on. So, that's just something that we have to keep in mind as far as like square footage goes. So, let's see here. All of the youth sports, sorry about that, guys, must be supervised. So there has to be an adult that is there supervising the youth that are doing skills and drills. So that brings us to the next really important piece. Games and scrimmages are not permitted at this time. The only sports that they are allowed to have regular games are non-contact sports like tennis or other racket sports. That's it. So at this point in time, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, you name it, all of them are just skills and drills. That is it. And everybody still has to maintain the 6 foot of distance between each of the individual groups. So, that's something it's a little bit of a challenge to be able to enforce that from our side of things, because, we're not out there on the fields on a daily basis. We don't have the time to ride around and make sure that people aren't actually playing games, that they're not doing scrimmages and things like that. So for us, that's a bit of a challenge.
Just to that point, I know that it's down the thing a little bit, and we're going to get to it, but in the skills and drills, the one big key point that we're going to get to in 3 bullet points is everybody has to have their own equipment. So that means if you're doing basketball drills, everybody has to have their own basketball. They can't share it.
Correct. Yep.
You can share a tennis ball though?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the governor when she messed up on the news, but you can only kick your balls. She was talking about how you have to pick the tennis ball up with your foot.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
That's a rule.
Yeah.
So my understanding, and I'm not sure how we enforce it, but my understanding, at least at Trollbrook, when a person's serving, so everybody has their own can of balls. When a person serves, they use their balls. You have to pick it up with your foot, with the racket, and hit it over. But when you're serving, you use your own tennis balls.
Yes, correct. And just a note, if anybody that is using the courts for tennis, they are single play only. And please, dear God, throw your trash away. We have so many of those little, the ring pops from the tennis ball holders. They're all over, littered all over the court. So please, 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 it's pick up after yourself. So take that trash home with you. All right. So no concessions allowed, spectators, limiting that as much as possible. And as Tim said, no sharing of equipment. Everybody has to have their own supplies. And that includes water bottles and food. And they are, in this one, suggesting that we stagger practice times for being able to maintain some space in parking lots, because sometimes those can get really, really big. So or really busy. So keep in mind, this is Peabody. We can change and amend this if we decide to move forward in any way that we see fit. So now we get into the portion where I have all of the state information on here, and I don't want to spend a ton of time going through all the nitty gritty, but it's more of if something pops out and you guys have conversations or questions about some of these things, we'd love to be able to answer those now while we have everybody here. So a lot of this information, as you can see here, the social distancing guidelines. So this is specifically for facility operator. So that would be us as a park commission and us as a department. So, we would have to enforce the groups of no more than 10, including coaches and staff. The groups have to be 20 feet apart. Contact sports, same thing again, no contact drills and training exercises only. We have kind of gotten some word through the grapevine that we think they'll be able to move forward with doing more like scrimmages and actually interacting in phase 3, but we don't know. I mean, we've learned right now with phase 2, it came out, we had an idea of what phase 2 was going to be last week, and then it changed again. So when everything came out on Saturday, there were some amendments that had been made. So just because we're hearing these things, we're always taking everything with a grain of salt because we're not sure exactly where the chips are going to fly. So a lot of this stuff pertains to indoor spaces, which we're not talking about. But the majority of the information is, going to be consistent. You're going to see that through sports. You're going to see it with the basketball courts, and you're also going to see it with playground use. So anybody have any questions on social distancing guidelines for us as facility operators? We would have to put signage up. So that's another thing that we would have to create that, get that out onto all of the athletic fields.
I have a question. So the onus is on us to police every person that's there, or is it on the, youth sports organization to enforce it?
It's kind of a combination of both. So, and that's part of asking the organization, the sports organizations to come up with that plan. And that's something, if we decide tonight that we're not going to do it right now, but we're going to do this in some sort of phased, manner, then we can discuss, with the sports organizations, like work with them back and forth. That's something, we're glad to be able to do. If they come up with a proposed operation plan, we can say, yeah, you can do that. No, you can't do that, and try to work that out.
So that was something I was going to.
Dan, you have to be called. Sorry, we're doing, you can do the *6, or you can, raise your hand. Sorry about that.
Just one second. I was gonna wait till the end to talk about the question Sean asked. My opinion is, we have enough really good people running these youth sports programs in our town. I think, if given, we can talk about the Peabody proposal. If they have to submit a plan to us, which I think is appropriate, I think that's fine. That, shows we're working with them, and, they're aware of all the policies and that are in place per the state. I think, I don't think we need to necessarily be showing up at fields to make sure that they're social distancing. I think, we need to put some onus on the organizations, the parents. If you're concerned that your kid is going to be exposed during practice, then don't send them to practice. If the organizations are worried about it, then they're not going to hold practice. And if in counter to that, if they're not concerned, then they can hold practices as they see fit by the guidelines that we will put forth today, potentially. But I hesitate to, I don't think that we need to quote unquote police the youth organizations in town. I think there are enough responsible leaders and coaches that run those programs that are going to, abide by these rules. They know what I assume they know. If they don't, we can make them aware of the consequences of, I don't want to sound like, authoritative, but, the reality is, if you're not going to follow the guidelines, and we get enough complaints, you know, we're probably going to have to tell you got to shut it down, and nobody wants that. So, the word policing is, I don't really like.
And we don't have the capacity to do that. So that's kind of my main point with this is that none of us, I mean, we're running on a skeleton crew right now. So that is not something we're able to do.
I think the biggest concern that I have in this, and like you said, Mike, I trust all of our youth sports coaches. I think they all do an outstanding job. What we run into is what we're seeing in other towns right now, and what I was so worried about at the beach. And if you go back and replay the meeting, you know, the beach thing went in with that caveat of 3 strikes and we were out, because, you know, that was what, you know, there wanted to be some guidelines here. And what I'm concerned about is if there's a complaint to the Board of Health, whether it's warranted or not, that's what I just want everybody to be mindful of. It's not necessarily us who's policing it, but if the Board of Health gets a certain number of calls, or if somebody sees somebody doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, no matter what the circumstance is, even we don't have control over that on the back end of it. So I just want to be very clear, you know, to everybody who's out there. I think I saw Dan and Bobby and a couple other people, that is what needs to be stressed to the coaches as we move forward. It's not the park commission. It's not the police. If the Board of Health is getting reports that anybody is in violation, they can shut it down at any second.
Absolutely.
Well, they can.
That same thing happened to the Chelmsford beaches. That was not a call.
We have to get a permit through them for the beach. I understand we're working with them, and I don't think any of the sport organizations are going to intentionally break these guidelines, but the Board of Health has that authority.
Yes.
At this point in time, an emergency, state of emergency, absolutely.
The executive order has given them that power.
Okay.
Yep.
I've said my piece on this. I just wanted to, you know, that word policing was a little, made me flinch. I don't know if we want to take Dan's comment at this point. I think he had something.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder, Mike. I was going to say the same thing. That's okay. But yeah, no, I think just maybe just 1 second to build on it. I would say, just like any other policy that you guys put out that we have to abide by, I would see it the same way, right? So you guys lay out the guidelines, and to be fair, you know, we as our leagues have been going through this in detail for weeks, and certainly when the final recommendations came out, we already have our whole thing written up for baseball, for softball, for the Babe Ruth organization, for USA Softball. Like, there's already stuff out there, so I have no issues with sending you guys a plan. It's really about enforcement. As I see it, it's on us. You guys lay out the policy of what we need to adhere to, and if we don't adhere to it, then we suffer the consequences. So I don't see the need for you guys to be going around fields making sure that that's happening. Like any other policy, that's the kind of the social contract that we have written with you guys.
Right.
So, you know, my only concern is, you know, you have people that might just go use the field anyway, right? And they're not associated with, you know, one of the sports organizations. So there's kids who've been jumping on alumni through this whole thing, and we have signs up and everything else. If the Board of Health gets a call about somebody going onto a field and doing something that's not associated with a sports league, are you saying that kind of too bad and they can shut it down just because of somebody who's jumped on there?
They could, yeah.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
See that I think if that's the case, right? And I've heard the same thing about kids going on alumni. It doesn't matter to me personally. If you are allowing your kids to go practice or do whatever they're doing, then, you know, to each their own. But, you know, I think if we're going to open up these fields for official youth organizations to use, I think at that point, I think we need to have a conversation with the schools that they have people hopping on alumni, and, you know, we don't necessarily care about that. It's your facility, but it could impact the youth sports in town if the Board of Health starts getting calls for these non-youth sport activities or whatever, you know, whatever's going on at alumni. I haven't personally seen it, but I've heard multiple people have told me. And again, I don't care. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, but if that's going to potentially impact the youth sport organizations, then we need to have that conversation, and they need to police that facility.
So I also agree with that, and that was why one of my suggestions was going to be for us is, everybody does such an excellent job on the schedule every single year. Maybe we put the clause in there that the youth sports organizations schedule their practices, and when there's no practices scheduled, the field reverts back to closed. So that way we can at least tell the Board of Health, Dan was supposed to be here, this person was supposed to be here, but this happened at this time, no one had the field scheduled, so that the earnest is not on the youth sports, so we can protect that a little bit. I just wanted to have an out so that those guys don't run into a situation like that, because that would be awful.
Yeah, that's fine. We can suggest that to the schools as well.
I wanted to clarify one piece though. When we talk about the policy and enforcement and things like that. Like I mentioned before, we don't have the staff to be able to go down and check. But one of the big pieces that comes along with a lot of these guidelines is usually there's the base understanding that you either have to manage it or close it. And so that's why I want to make sure that we're having this discussion and talking about the realities of if we are not managing it, which we're not able to do, we don't have the staff to do it, then it is going to land on the youth organizations to be responsible for that and to make sure that they're educating and communicating with their coaches that everybody's following the right path, because this is out of our hands. It's not a like, hey, this happened, Dan, don't mean to put you on the spot, but like, Dan, can you talk to coach so-and-so and, we'll give it a go again. Like if this is out of our hands, it's if something goes to the Board of Health and they decide that it is a risk that is not worth taking when it comes to children, then they'll shut it down.
Right, but wouldn't Tim's suggestion work? If there's
we could really do that. You guys, we can do whatever we want at this point in time. So that's not true. I take that back.
I think we all know that Bobby and Dan and I don't know who's in lacrosse. I know it was JR and Tommy and all of those. They have been excellent partners.
Absolutely.
They've been excellent stewards. And I have nothing but faith in the fact that these guys have done just as much homework and work as we have done. Yep. And for them to, kind of be those stewards of the game to, they have more at stake than any of us as far as, making sure the fields stay open. So like I said, my only suggestion was we put out the schedule and we give out the schedule. And if it's not a scheduled practice, then the field reverts to closed status. I think that that's the easiest way to do it.
So
I'd be fine with that.
Would it be possible for us to say we're sort of managing things by having the youth organizations submit their plan to us? Yeah. We approve the plan, and then we make some sort of statement that we're opening the fields only to the youth sports organizations that have submitted approved plans. And that sort of puts it in, look, we've reviewed what they're going to do. It allows us to sort of take on the management word, at least, to make it look like that we're in fact managing it to some extent, and then leave the actual operation of it to the youth sports themselves. And then I think it would seem to me we've covered all of the things and just say that's the only time the fields are open.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because what's the Board of Health going to do? The only way they're going to close it is to tell us that the permitted activities are allowed. So they can say, well, you can't do the permitted activities anymore, but they can't physically stop these kids from going out, or they would have been doing it all along. Correct?
Agree. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing is, I'm getting emails upon emails upon emails from USA Hockey. That's I'm involved with hockey, and they have all the guidelines that have come out for hockey already in just the last few days are, the plan's already there for hockey. I assume baseball, softball, football, they're national organizations. I assume they're, ahead of this, and they've put all this stuff in place already too. And, so there's, we have state guidelines, we have national organization guidelines. We'll put some guidelines, we giving you instructions. We just got to follow them. And I, like I said, I have full faith that, the people in charge in this town will be able to do it. I think Dan had something. Steal your thunder again, Dan?
Actually, that's a very, very, no, it's a very quick question for Tim. from a scheduling standpoint, just so I'm clear, we would still be using our existing scheduling system on our individual websites that you check, or are you going to have a centralized scheduling system?
So that's through me.
Yeah, so Alicia did that.
Yeah.
I'll let Alicia answer that question, but I was thinking exactly how we've done it in years past.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can do a meeting and check up, and just as we've done in the past, especially during spring usage, to figure out what those dates are going to be and kind of go back and forth on that agreement. If we need to, we could always, we have a system that we can do reservations from, and that we can actually, block out all the items. So we've been working on, I don't know how long into the call you've been, but we do have a working group that we're kind of talking about all these recreational issues that come up. So whether it's the beach or Camp T or the athletic fields or programs. So there's a group of us from, Board of Selectmen, Board of Health. We're all talking about these issues on a weekly basis. So that's one of the things, we can bring up and kind of have that discussion about, what that's going to be, what that's going to look like. Okay. All right. So let's go back to this thing. So as you can see, there's a lot. There's like one whole page on social distancing guidelines for us, one whole social distancing guidelines for the organizations. There's hygiene protocols for the operators. As far as outdoor facilities, there's not going to be much as far as like cleaning and things like that. That's going to be having to work with. The majority of the issues will be if we have restrooms available, that we are able to clean those. And I want to double check with RADA again, because they've done our porta potties in the past. But so the porta potties do come with the hand sanitizer dispensers. So I just want to verify with them that their percentage of alcohol in that meets the requirements for these guidelines, as well as, if we're doing weekly cleanings, if that's actually sanitizing or if it's just a cleaning. So yeah, Tim.
I just wanted to ask the question, since the youth sports are here. Would anybody be willing to pay the additional fee for the biweekly cleanings like we're doing for the other Park and Rec properties?
So you can get 1 or 2 cleanings a week, and we've opted for 2, just for our programs.
That was directed towards Dan and the other.
I figured, yeah. So what I would say is we're actually, as a league, we're still deciding if we're even going to do anything for the summer. And if it makes sense for us to just wait till the fall. So I would say if we're playing and we have people going on the field, then absolutely that would be part of what we'd be willing to pay for additional cleaning. I think that makes sense. I would just say if we decide that we're not going to play, we'd obviously not want to be paying for something that we're not actually benefiting from.
Absolutely.
Doug, what about football? You're muted.
You're on mute, Doug.
So we're still up in the air right now. AYF is trying to come up with a protocol so that we could our boys can play, and girls if they choose to, but we're still on the slow roll right now. So it looks, at the very least, we may start like the end of August instead of the beginning of August at this point. So we'll see what happens, but we're on a slow roll right now. We have an AYF, a Massachusetts AYF meeting Thursday night that I'll know more at that point. So,
okay.
But just to follow in Dan's steps, lacrosse is out. We're done for the season, obviously, at this point. I know that there is a club lacrosse team in town run by one of the fathers. I know he's looking for field space and stuff, and I'm sure that he would contribute towards the cleanings of the restrooms as well. Hate to speak for him, but I know he loves the sport enough that
Yes, I would agree.
get on the field. But lacrosse is done for the season. Football, we're still kind of up in the air at this point. So,
Doug, I'm going to put my email up on my name. So if you want to write that down and give that to that
I have it.
individual. Oh, okay. So yeah, just have him get in touch with me.
Okay,
Okay.
no problem.
I'll put it up anyway so people have it.
Perfect.
All right.
And just we have the bathrooms at Castle in the Trees.
So we don't yet. So we will get to that. All right.
So right, I'm just kind of piggybacking on this topic. If we choose to open the courts, we'll need porta potties there.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So I kind of the reason that I put these in the order is that we have the youth sports organizations that have their rules. We have the playgrounds that have their rules. So I wanted to review all of those before we talked about 300 King, because both of those guidelines are going to kind of come together, when dealing with the basketball courts situation. So because we have, in the facility of 300 King, people call it Castle of Trees, but that's the name of the playground, not the park. But in that facility, we do have the 3 basketball courts. We have the walking path as well as the playground. I just kind of wanted to get through the sports stuff first. So,
yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of talked about all of these pieces and components. It sounds like everybody's kind of in a agreement. So it's up to you guys, what you want to do. At this point in time, if you choose, we can open the fields for skills and drills. I would suggest that you make a decision on, do you want it to be Littleton Youth Sports? Do you want it to be outside organizations? I've had quite a few outside organizations contact me. We kind of need to make a decision on, is it something that we do in a phased approach? Or is that, do we want to just try and get everybody out there? So again, that's problematic if we try to go that path. Tim, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say, just because we're so close to the border, it bids mentioning phase 2, you are required to be a Massachusetts resident to participate in skills and drills and everything else. Just wanted to throw that out there. It's not in any of these bullet points.
Okay.
My preference would be to make it so you are a Littleton-based team. That would allow teams like the club lacrosse team based in town to potentially use the fields, but it would then prevent a team from Worcester coming to use our fields because they know they're open. I would want to prevent that, but I know the coach for that club team, and I know he's going to run a good practice using these guidelines, so I wouldn't want to bar him from potentially getting those kids out there to enjoy a sport that they love. They've lost their whole season.
Yeah.
So if we can somehow craft the motion or whatever we decide in that way, Littleton-based teams maybe, if that works.
It's up to you.
But personally, I like these. I think these Peabody requirements make perfect sense. I don't see any that I wouldn't put in there. It's a lot of what we've seen for hockey. I don't know what the other commissioners how they feel about it. If you want anything you don't want in there, anything you want to add, Mike.
I agree with everything that's said so far, including limiting at least, at this point in time to Littleton coaches. Park and Rec has a relationship with the Littleton coaches, and so I think to start off with, that's a good route to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Alicia and Tim, looking at the Peabody stuff, is there anything in there that you think they're missing?
I don't think so. again, as long as we have that communication going on with the sports organizations, and again, we've always had really good communication with everybody in the past. This individual that you guys are talking about, who I don't know who that is, but as long as they're willing to go through and submit the safety plan, and we can have a candid conversation about what. If he's using or she is using additional coaches and staff, just to make sure that they're having those conversations with all of the individuals that are going to be out there, with the youth, because it's a really important piece. I think the only thing that potentially I would think about adding is the trash, because trash just seems to be a really big issue. At the beach at the beginning, we had a lot of just, used masks that were left on the ground, and there was a lot of things that we had to pick up. So I would say just the pack it in, pack it out reminder that we've got to keep the fields clean. Try to clean up if there's something that if you're in the dugouts and the kids are consistently like touching the walls or the fence, try to clean that up before you leave. Try to leave it better than you found it. Would be, the one piece that I'd really want to add in there.
I'm sorry, Sean. I was just going to say, if we did a motion somewhere along the lines of we open the fields to Littleton-based teams, including Littleton Youth Sports, and we adopt guidelines similar to the Peabody guidelines with the two caveats you mentioned, and based on a submitted and approved plan from the youth sports. Would that be sort of where we're going? Ken, what are you laughing at?
Nothing.
I just thought I was just trying to cover everything. I mean, is that the sort of motion you're going to look for here?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All
So
right.
now you want one? Or do we want to have more discussion?
Mike, you have anything else to add? Sean?
No, I think we've covered almost everything. I think it's a fair, balanced approach.
Yeah. Sounds like Fred's got a motion in hand.
All right, so let me see if I can hit these points again. I move that we vote to open the Littleton athletic fields to Littleton Youth Sports and other Littleton-based teams based on our adoption of a set of guidelines similar to the Peabody guidelines that were presented this evening, with the additional points of make sure they clean up after themselves and remove all the trash, and try to, as Alyssa said, make it better. And that it is also based on the approval of a plan submitted by each youth sports group as to how they will maintain all of the phase 2 guidelines.
I like it.
I'll add schedule, right? That was part of that managed plan.
And okay, I kind of lost what I'm supposed to add with that one.
So the teams will submit a schedule, and if the schedule and outside the schedule, the field will revert to closed status.
It's to protect the organizations, because again, if somebody makes a complaint to the Board of Health.
Oh, that's right. And in addition to opening the fields for all that and having a schedule, that when the field is not in use by one of the authorized Littleton teams, they are considered closed to the public.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Is that a goat? All right, it's gone.
My dog had ACL surgery, and I can't let her jump down off the couch, so I'm trying to corral her.
So,
All right, does your dog want to second that motion?
Poor thing. Don't call my dog a goat.
Saw the body.
I won't tell my wife that you said that. She'd be mad.
do we have a second?
Waiting for a second here.
Second.
It's got to be from a commissioner.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All right.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Fred.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
John's dog.
Rough. Aye.
I'm also an aye. All right, so
Before the
The
youth
field-
sport,
yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I just wanted to say before the youth sports guys get off, I have two things. So number one, if we keep moving down this road, in theory, we should be moving into phase 3 sometime prior to the end of the month, between the 22nd and the 26th, which means that we'll most likely have to have a special park commission meeting in order to revisit those ideas as well. I think that if anybody wants to be part of the working group, or come to those meetings, just wanted to extend the invitation on Tuesdays at 1:00. And lastly, just something to throw out there that some of our colleagues are doing already is knowing that some of the teams can't get together or organizations are already canceling. The idea has been floated that in phase 3, as we start to resume, that the Park and Recs maybe partner with the youth sports organizations to allow for times to have pickup games for their respective sports. So obviously the seasons are gone, but what they're trying to do is say, 5:00 on Mondays, anybody who wants to play lacrosse, come on down and do that. So just kind of things to float out there, because that kind of stuff we can help out with as we move into the next phases. So I don't have anything other than that. I just wanted to put that stuff out there.
Dan, you feel like you're in school again?
Yeah, seriously. Just one thing, Kim. Of course, our spring season is gone, but we do actually have formal summer seasons for baseball and softball. So in phase 3, we've been talking as a league potentially about actually having a formal season with formal games. So it wouldn't necessarily just be pickup if we make it to phase 3. And by the way, I'm not saying we're even agreeing to do that, but just so you're aware, there might be some variation or some spectrum from just practices and skills and drills to pickup games in town only to actually traveling with us going to other towns, then coming here if it's that formal. So, but obviously nothing would happen until phase 3 and if the guidelines allow for it.
Right. Yep. And that's something like, just stay in contact with me and we'll figure out how we go through all of those things. And just reiterating that, we made this decision tonight based off of phase 2. So we're in this until the Park Commission can make another decision. So, we'll work with you guys and try, phase 3 comes out, we'll try to be ahead of it and have the meeting. Like all of these came out on Saturday and we've got the meeting today. So, one day, that's pretty good. So we'll try to, work those out as best as we can, knowing that, this is coming down the pipeline. So yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Next topic.
All right. So you take it off. See you, Dan. Thanks. All right. So let's go. All right. So we went through all youth sports stuff. So I'm going to move past this. All right. So playground use. So this is one I don't think that we're going to be able to do, simply for the fact that we do actually have to provide cleaning of the actual playground, which we do not currently do. So I'm going to move to the general sanitization document here. So cleaning, we would have to do high-touch surfaces made of plastic or metal, which our playground used to be wood. It is no longer. It is now made of Trex material. So we still would be on, be responsible for cleaning grab bars, railings, etc., things like that. So that's something.
So I don't know how any of the other commissioners feel, but I've already heard enough. Like, there's no way we can do that. Like, we can't open in my opinion, we can't open the playgrounds. If we have to clean every surface, we can't do it. So I don't know if we need to belabor the openings of playgrounds.
I hear you.
But I'm more than willing to continue this conversation if you guys want to.
No, I'm with you, Mike.
Same here, Mike.
Okay, so playgrounds are out.
All right, so make a motion.
To continue to
do not. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I move that we do not open the playgrounds during phase 2.
All right, now we're talking playground sets, correct? Because I want to talk about the basketball courts.
That's not including the, We're talking about Castle in the Trees. We're talking about the playground at the beach, and we're talking about the playground at Fay Park.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
I'll revise it too. I move that we do not open the Castle in the Trees playground, the playground at the beach, or the playground at Fay Park during phase 2.
Second.
All right. Fred,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
I'm also an aye. All right. Playgrounds will remain closed
Okay.
during phase 2.
Gotcha. All right, moving on. All right, so now we've got the basketball court use here. So, this is where, like I said, we have a confluence of some of the things with the playgrounds that are kind of intermingled with the basketball court. So, just some of the thoughts that we've had if we got to the situation where you guys decide that you do want to open the basketball courts, with having such a point of interest playground, and Castle is definitely one of those locations. We have people from all over the state coming to visit Castle because it's pretty unique. So, we do have snow fencing that we can put up similar to what we did down at the beach, and cordon it off with the 4-foot snow fencing all the way around it. That is a possibility that we can do that. Tim, do you feel like we have enough to go all the way around that outside fence?
Yes. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure how much Kaz is going to need, but if we need to put it up at Castle first, then we'll figure Kaz out later. But yes, yeah, we can do it.
Okay. So, that is an option. So please keep that in mind. This is just kind of an idea of some of the guidelines that we talked about that would include some of those portions of the conversation that we had with the athletic fields, as well as with the playgrounds. Kind of a couple of really important pieces with this is that we definitely, again, don't have the staff to be picking up trash. So it would be, and it is posted at 300 King, though not necessarily adhered to, but trash should be very strictly pack it in, pack it out, so that we will not be providing waste receptacles. I know we've kind of gone back and forth and provided them in past summers when we had a lot of usage, but at this point in time, it's a health, it's a safety risk for the staff that would be there cleaning up. So it will be the responsibility of the individuals to pack it in, pack it out. So the big piece is that the facility is going to be unstaffed. We talked about that prior, and that this is one of the requests that come off of the playground ruling. And essentially it says that as the facility being unstaffed, the visitors will be required to seek alternative facilities if the basketball courts are crowded, so that social distancing can occur. Because keep in mind, the maximum group that can be out there is 10. That is, unless they have the ability to be 20 feet away from a separate group of 10. And they all have to maintain the 6-foot distance from each other. So we're still talking about skills and drills. Everybody would have to have their own basketball. They should not be sharing equipment by any means. So those are kind of the big important pieces, in all of these policies that we have here. So you guys can read, so I'll let you review it. I know a lot of you have reviewed it prior as well. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, definitely throw them out there and let's have a discussion about it.
Can't we run them just like we did with the other fields now? They're closed and only open to organized Littleton participants, recreational participants, leagues?
Yeah, I'd extend it. That was my thought, and I'd extend it a bit further. If there is an organizer that wants to take charge and be, sort of responsible. I know, for instance, Glenn Berry, runs a basketball, run, in the winter times, and they have runs on the court. I'm wondering if that's a possibility if somebody were to step up.
We have Bo Smith is actually here in the meeting. I've talked to Bo, and I don't know if Tim or Alicia have as well. I think you have in some capacity, but Bo is willing to volunteer his time free of charge to, he can speak to how long he wants to stay at the court. But I think basketball is a little bit more unique, where you do get a lot of kids and, flocking to the court to just, shoot around. I think it does need to be supervised.
Right.
I think if Bo's willing to do that, we can certainly, I think, work with him to do that. Bo's a USA basketball coach certified. He's certified in safe sport. So Bo has unmuted himself. So Bo, I don't know if you want to have anything you want to say.
Hi. Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Bo Smith. I've lived in town for about 15 years. I'm on the Littleton Youth Basketball Board. Like Mike said, I'm USA basketball certified, safe sport certified, and actually having my first night of practice with about 200 AAU players right now in a private facility that we're running using the state rules and then going a little further. So yes, I can speak on this a little bit. Well, what I can see here is the guidelines. I think everyone would want to play, full court games. And I play with Glenn Saturday and Sunday mornings that Mike was talking about. I don't think that's the goal here. I do want to be cautious. About 3 weeks ago, I sent a list of controls to a member of the Parks and Rec Department. I don't see any of those in here. But a simple one is if we do open it up to Littleton residents, there's 3 full courts there. We could designate 3 half courts, so we could have a full half court in between, and we could have a limited number of people on that half court for skills and drills only. If someone breaks those rules, it's out the window. They're gone. But what I don't want is basketball as a sport to be treated any differently than tennis, football, softball, which I've seen abominations down on Alumni Field. I know that you don't have the control over it. But I think there's a way where we can make this even more controlled and safe than any of the currently open fields.
So, Bo, I just want to be really clear. Everything that's up here is from the state guidelines. So those are coming directly from phase 2 from the governor's office.
Right. What I'm saying is if we could even go above and beyond if nobody feels comfortable with just these, where, we could have a max group size of 10, we could cut that down to 6 per half court. Obviously, trash would be carry in, carry out. It would be Littleton residents only if you felt comfortable with that. I just think these are good controls, but if you're not comfortable with them, that we can make them even better.
Well, do you think this is something that we could say is going to be run through Littleton basketball? In other words, they could, because my concern is that I'm okay with 10, but if you think 6 is better, how do you, when you get the 19th and 20th kid down there, do they just stand around and wait in line? Or I feel like if you guys wanted to run it, you could actually have kids sign up through your organization.
Right. I think then we're taking the liability on there, and then it sounds like other, baseball and lacrosse, where if they're using the fields, then afterwards it's closed. I don't think that we could do that here because, kids are playing from a lot longer. And there's more people playing basketball, obviously, than baseball or any of the other sports.
Yeah.
But these are good guidelines, and there's already precedents. Basketball courts are able to be open along with tennis courts under phase 1. Quincy, which is a city of 100,000 people and a hotspot for Corona, opened their basketball courts during phase 1.
So I guess my concern would be, the other sports will always have a coach there with them. So they have someone there pointing out when, the guy, maybe you're too close, separate a little bit.
Yep.
Whereas if it's 10 to a court and there are no Littleton basketball coaches down there to supervise, I think that's when we run the risk of getting complaints and
Correct.
getting shut down.
It's accountability, and it's being able to cover with the, if there are complaints to the Board of Health.
Tim, I see you.
But I agree, and safety comes first. But I do want this to be treated, although you don't have control over Alumni Field and the other fields around it, it has to be treated somewhat similarly, because there is no social distancing going on. There's 20 kids with their shirts off playing tag football. There's out-of-town softball teams in uniform playing on the field. There's no monitoring right now.
We did discuss that.
About that.
We did discuss that earlier, in that, if we're allowing the youth sports to use the fields, that we do need to, at this point, have a conversation with the schools to say, you guys need to enforce these guidelines at Alumni and Jet, because if people see those things going on, they're going to report the youth organizations, and then the Board of Health is going to step in and shut them down, and that's not fair to them. So
Sure.
My point to you about going through Littleton basketball would be to have someone like you on the court with these kids, running the drills, maintaining these guidelines. Otherwise, I feel like this would get shut down pretty quickly without someone down there in an official capacity.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's something I can speak to Mike Fontmiller about. He's the president. I can speak to him about that. I mentioned to Alicia yesterday that I'm willing to donate my time, several hours a day in order to do it. If we have enough kids who want to do it. I don't want to just sit down there and get a sunburn, but I'm willing to do that happily because I think it's important that, although this is a contact sport, in phase one, it was under the same guidelines as tennis. And where we can control this, because something else that I don't see in here and that I enacted tonight for my practices, like I said, of 200 plus kids, is each child had its own basketball. So there's no sharing of basketballs. So we can't, if it can travel on a basketball, we shut that down. Each person has to have their own basketball on the court. If they don't, they can't play.
It's in your bill.
I think we have no sharing equipment.
Yep.
So.
Right. Okay.
Gotcha.
Tim, you're going to explode.
Tim is eagerly awaiting to talk.
Yeah.
So, I have to point this out to everybody, because every other youth sports organization does some sort of collection of fees that help the park and rec. It helps pay for the courts. It helps pay for the fields. It does everything else. So why would we all of a sudden have basketball just come in and completely disband rather than not move forward with our program that's very successful, which is Boston Elite Sports, that Terrell comes in and runs for us all the time? That makes us money. So, I just have to put that out there to you guys, because we're a year away from when we're supposed to be resurfacing the courts. And I know this is a much different situation, but I feel a need that, when Dan and Bobby and everybody else are out there kicking in to help with this stuff, that, we have a very successful basketball program that we run, that John, I know for a fact, is getting ready to launch, that, we're also then, not doing anything. So I just wanted to just put that out there.
So I don't understand. Is it because Littleton Youth Basketball doesn't give you money, but you're making money off Boston Elite?
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out to the park commissioners to let them know that we do have a basketball program that we run that we could also get going that helps towards the bottom line of the deficit as well.
How many kids are in that camp that Terrell runs?
I don't know off the top of my head. I just wanted, I said, I just wanted to bring up that.
Right. We have five times the participation in just the travel leagues that Littleton Youth Basketball runs, let alone the 4-on-4 rec leagues, which is open to every person who signs up. So I would argue that we have much more influence on the kids and how responsible they are playing basketball than someone who just brings in money.
So I think
Small amount of money.
this
No,
is
I'm
this
not
is-
saying it's just.
We're
Tim, hold
getting
on.
off topic here.
Yeah. So this is a historical. Not we have history with the tennis program in town, where we offer a program for a fee and someone wants to come in and use it for free. It's that thing that Tim is trying to work out. I think that this particular situation, I think calls for, I'm not worried about that at this point. I understand what you're saying, Tim. But I think for what we're dealing with here, to get these kids on the court to play a sport that they love, I think, using the parents in town, if we can, I think we should give Bo a chance to coordinate with Mike Fontanella, for maybe the duration of the summer or until we're out of this situation where, we're worried about phases and guidelines and all this. I would rather see those kids using the court in a just like we're allowing the other sports to do with the guidance of their coaches.
In the past, I have worked with some of the basketball coaches in Littleton Hoops, and they have reserved the courts, down there at Castle in the Trees. So we're kind of talking about semantics here, and we're not. So if this is something like, Bo, if you're bringing in your, organization and expecting to do everything for free, then that's something that we need to talk about, because that's not how, we operate. So that is something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I'm at practice right now. No, that's not my intent at all. This is just for the children of Littleton.
Okay.
This isn't for running practices for a for-profit program.
So, Bo, my other point in that, and to be clear, we charge the other youth organizations for the maintenance and upkeep. And if you guys are using the courts, regardless of who's using the courts, whether it's you, whether it's anybody else, the pads need to be replaced. The nets need to be replaced. The courts eventually need to be resurfaced. It's all wear and tear. And that money eventually is going to have to come from somewhere. So I just wanted that to be thought about, before we just say, yes, we're going to open them up, and we don't think about, the full thing of what we have to do.
Tim, we're talking about, I wouldn't be in favor of charging these guys anything. I think we're talking about getting these kids back onto the court, getting them to play the sport that they love. It's going to be all Littleton kids. If this were a regular situation and they wanted to reserve the courts on a weekend that, or run a tournament on a weekend where we would normally have, where all the, a lot of these kids would be down there anyways, and then we'd be taking the court away from them, then I'd be all in favor of charging them a fee. But these are the kids from our town that would be using it under normal circumstances anyways. I am not, under these circumstances, in favor of charging. It was my suggestion to get Littleton basketball involved just for the supervision aspect. So if they're going to provide that supervision aspect to open up these courts to the kids, I wouldn't want to then turn around and say, but now you owe us money for using the courts.
Right.
And I think that's where we got off topic. I think the point of, trying to, so the discussion that we had with the other fields and having Dan involved and having Bobby involved and Doug involved was that there's an organization entity that is in that partnership with us, right? So, Bo, I don't know what time you came on to the call, but we had the discussion that, part of the policy of getting the athletic fields open is that we would go through the normal process that we do with the other sports organizations. So softball, baseball, lacrosse, soccer, etc. So, and with that, we would work with them where they would create an operational plan where, they've included all of these things that are up here on the screen. So they know that the max group size is going to be 10. They know that the kids cannot, share equipment, that they need to have their own water bottles, their own food. They're packing trash in and out. They're keeping the 6-foot distance. If they can't do that, then they have to wear a mask. So that they have this organized plan that's approved by the park commission to be able to move forward. So without the organizational piece, that's where it gets really tricky, because if we just open the courts right now for anybody to come in, that's where we feel like we're going to get into this issue of having a difficulty of managing, which is the guidelines for, well, sort of the statement that goes along with all of the guidelines from the state is, if you can't manage it, it's got to be shut down. So that's the piece of, we have to figure out how to manage it when we currently aren't going to have the staff to be able to do that. So that's kind of the agreement that we have with the sports organization, that they would create this plan. So that's why I think, you know, Mike made the suggestion to kind of get Littleton Hoops involved, because then that way we can say it's Littleton Hoops, they're reserving space, yada yada, you know, and go through that. So rather than just kind of having it open to the public, because we're going to end up in the same situation that we talked about earlier. Whereas if you just have random people coming out and not abiding by the rules, and the Board of Health gets called, then that kind of, you know, right now they have the trump card over everybody, so that if, you know, they decide that rules are not being followed and the guidelines are not being maintained, they'll just shut it all down.
Sure. No, I understand those concerns. And I can speak to the basketball board about it. But I think Mike, you know, kind of hit the nail on the head, where these are public courts and we wouldn't pay just to go up and play and shoot around anyways.
I'm moving past that. That's why I said we got off topic with that. So
Okay.
We're just talking about you guys. How do we get you access to the actual basketball courts at this time? I think
Sure.
Tim is making a point about, you know, the basketball organization being involved with us in the future. Yep. And, you know, when we try to do pickup leagues and things like that out there, that we need that financial support, because we don't get that from the town. So I understand the point of where Tim is going with it, but it's kind of getting us a little bit off topic right now from where we're at. So just plant that as a seed, and, you know, we can talk about that at a later time.
Sure.
But right now, you know, trying to figure out how to get you guys on the court.
Sure. I mean, I think it's as easy as, you know, a reservation process. You know, you have to reserve the court, whether it's online or calling into your office and say from 3 to 4 o'clock, the Smith family, you know, has court 1. Again, we can keep the numbers down by, there's 6 half courts up there. We can designate 3 to keep the numbers down and cover the social distancing aspect. Obviously, masks have to be worn. You know, carry trash in and out. If we'll make them wear masks, then I think that's fine. And not sharing balls, I think, obviously it's on here. So, you know, I don't want to, you know, keep you guys on here all night. I know I've reached out to many of you, but I do think that there is a solution here.
Mike.
So I think we're in agreement. I think something similar to what we did with the fields, and a motion along those lines. You know, the one caveat I might have is it might probably be, you know, the courts are slightly different animal, I think, than fields, and we probably want to have signage up for when they're, you know, saying it's, you know, it's for the youth sports, and it's closed when they're, you know, when they're not there. But some verbiage along those lines, I think I would be good with.
Tim, do we have or Alicia, do we have the capacity to do a reservation type deal for the courts? So, I mean, we could just say, we could put do something like the guidelines down at the beach, like signs like that, and with a sign that says these courts are to be used by reservation only. Otherwise, they're closed. If you haven't reserved the courts, then you're not allowed to be on there.
I mean, the hard part is enforcement. You know, how do you?
Yeah.
In how is that parity with the fields themselves then? Because it's not the same as the fields. I'm all for getting the basketball. I'm not anti-basketball. I want to get the basketball players on the court, but I want to do it in a way that's A, safe, B, controlled, and 3, fair with the other organizations also.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, to Bo's point about, letting the Smith family reserve it, I that's kind of why I was asking about the reserving it. But yeah, I think you make a good point about policing it. If they see a family on there at 4:00 and no one's reserved it for 6, who's to say that someone's not going to jump on it? And then, yeah, I can't see how we can possibly police that with the staff that we have. So I would say I would be in line with treating basketball just like we've treated the other sports, and with the same, let's let Bo go back to youth basketball and see if there's any appetite to put together a plan that they would submit to us, a safety plan, and then all these guidelines we see here, and then basketball would be treated just like all the other sports. I don't think that's exactly what Bo was looking for, but I don't see a way we can possibly police, having the right people on the court when they reserve it, and making sure that it's not being used when it's not reserved.
And again, a schedule, because let's say Bo is running something, right, and he's following all the guidelines and doing what he's supposed to be doing, and then somebody else jumps on afterwards. You'd want to have some way to protect Bo and his group. If there's a complaint that goes to the Board of Health. And say,
right, and then we can see, Littleton basketball can schedule their practices, and so when someone says, "Hey, I saw a full court game going on at 3:00 down there," we can look and say, "Well, listen, Board of Health, Littleton basketball wasn't down there at 3:00. That was unauthorized use of the courts."
Correct.
And we can still keep up signs that say the court's closed.
Correct.
Open to Littleton basketball only.
And we're only talking for a couple of weeks, basically, till ever phase 3 kicks in. This is
Hopefully.
right, but I'm just saying it's not like, hey, this is going to happen till September. It potentially could just be a couple of 3 or 4 weeks until we can see.
Correct.
3.
Yeah.
No, I would be happy to share that with Littleton basketball board. But I don't want to discount that, we can sit on the sidelines for a couple of weeks, because it was already allowed to be open under phase 1. So we've already been treated differently. So
you haven't been. And the reason that that's the case is that it's always gone along. If we can't maintain something, we cannot open it. That is the basic understanding and statement that goes along with all of these guidelines. And when we had this conversation at the very beginning, Tim mentioned it at the beginning, that as we go through and we have these discussions, keep in mind, if we choose to stay in phase 0 or phase 1 as a park commission or as a department, we have that purview to do it. Because at this point in time, we have had, 7,408 deaths just in the state because of this pandemic. We have got to be smart. We have to be cautious. And if that means that, we are taking a few months of our whole lives to think about other people, then that's extremely important at this time. And that is our responsibility as a department head and as park commissioners.
absolutely agree. I couldn't agree with you more. But you're not monitoring the tennis courts after you leave your office. So it is being treated differently.
So you've got Saul on here as
said,
well that has his hand up if you guys want to listen.
Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Saul, you want to go ahead?
Sorry, yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. Saul Marini, 149 Hartwell. I guess my one thought or concern with opening the basketball courts, I think you certainly need to get your snow fencing up around Castle first. But is opening the park, if you're opening the courts in the parking lot, do we run into, causing ourselves more headaches because it just becomes an invitation for people to be there?
That's my big concern too, Saul. Yeah.
Well, I think like everything else that we've done, well, shouldn't say everything, like the beach, we're giving people a chance to show that they can abide by the guidelines that we put forward. And if they can't, And especially if we limit it to Littleton basketball, I feel the same way. I know Bo personally. I feel, confident that if he says Littleton basketball can support these guidelines, I have full faith that they will. I know Mike Fontanella too. And I think they would be honest and say, this isn't something that we're interested in doing. And if that's the case, then, I don't think we open them up because, what I don't want to, I don't think we can handle just letting anyone come on the court and, we can't police. I don't want to use that word, but
could
Enforce.
they function without the parking lot? I mean, could just do drop-offs or something like that, just to keep that sort of.
I would
invitation
say
down.
we should handle the parking lot the same way we do the beach. We can cone every other spot off. That'll limit the parking, and I think eventually. Well, I mean, if we're limiting the court anyways, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
It's number one that's on this guideline for the basketball court use, that the parking lot spaces will be limited to reduce capacity. So yeah, we will put that on there.
All right. So if anyone wants to make a motion to open the basketball courts to Littleton youth basketball, pending their approval, they have to. Well, I don't even know if we need to do that necessarily, but they would need to have a safety plan in place, and then that's the only thing I don't necessarily see on this particular list of requirements of guidelines.
So I can add that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think whatever the verbiage was for the other sports in regards to a safety plan submitted to us ahead of time, I'd want that in there with all these other guidelines.
Okay. And again, you guys don't have to make a decision. That's something you could hold on to if you want to wait and see what, they'll come to you with. We could have a special meeting when they're ready to, discuss their plan and leave everything closed at this point in time. Because then that gives us time to prep the playground and all of that as well.
Well, we still can't open it until they submit a safety plan. We're not going to open it to them until they submit a plan to us.
Correct. But I'm saying it gives us a little bit of time to be able to get in there to the park and make sure that we would be ready to go if you guys decide to go that way.
In my mind, I can't see opening up the parking lot until we can at least address the playground. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'd feel more comfortable having them come. I don't feel comfortable making a motion without all the particulars in place. I would just assume wait till they come to us with their proposal so we can look at them and then, make a motion on what's in front of us.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but the other sports haven't given us their safety plan yet, and we opened up the fields.
They also don't have a giant playground associated with the park and playground or parking lot.
And we've worked with all the other sports before as well, so we know the coaches and the players.
Well, Mike, that's a good point, Mike. I didn't think of that.
When do you think you could actually get that fencing in?
Well, we've got town meeting. So I can try to get out there sometime this week. I know Tim has extra snow fencing, and I can try to call Stephen Witten and see if Highway can help me out tomorrow.
If Littleton basketball doesn't want to do this, there's no sense in fencing off the playground. We're just going to keep the whole facility closed.
Right.
So that's why I think they should come to, when they're ready to come to us with a plan, we can say yes or no to the plan. And now we need a few days or whatever to fence off the playground.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot of wasted work on your guys' part if they don't want to go, they don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, I hear you.
And, it sounds like Bo does, but Bo's one guy that the rest of the board may say, it's not worth it. Let's wait till the gyms open up.
I should be available for a special meeting on any given night.
We're not letting Mike go that easy. He's got to come back for one more meeting.
Bastard.
Mr. Prue.
All right, so we're going to kick the can on this?
I think so.
Yep,
Yeah.
sounds good.
All right, so just for the message to give to basketball, it's we want them to come and give us a plan, a safety plan.
Yep.
When that safety plan is given to us, we will then open up the courts to them
Only.
and to them only, and we need to fence off the playground.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fred, you're quiet.
No, I
It would
said
be-
sounds good.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's all right.
Okay.
All right.
So let me move on from this guy. Beach update, Tim.
So, can I just? I need to go. My wife is stuck at work, and my kids are. They need to go to bed.
Okay.
So I apologize. It's not my last meeting, so I guess it's not that bad. I don't know.
Just give a speech. I just want one speech in case it's your last meeting. We need a speech.
Words of
I got-
wisdom.
I got no speech. It's been fun. I may actually, if no one volunteers to take, we have 2 spots open now because no one's running, right?
Yeah.
I may, if no one else volunteers, I may stick around. But
Okay.
my issue is I got family issues going on. I'm not going to be able to make every meeting, so I definitely will not be chairman. But I'm happy to help out if you guys need me. If no one else is willing to step up,
Yeah.
I will stick around.
And I did want to mention Kevin Matrano said that he wanted to do a write-in campaign. So we're by no means advertising or anything, just mentioning that was something he had been a previous park commissioner and said that he was interested in coming back.
Will he be able to get the 7 votes?
I don't know. Maybe. If 7 people write him in, maybe, yeah.
That's the threshold.
So we just need one more, and you guys can get rid of me. Perfect.
Thank you, Mike, for everything. It's been great working with you.
All right.
Absolutely.
Likewise.
Yep.
We'll be in touch. I'm not leaving town.
Good. Yeah.
That's a requirement, Mike.
You haven't done it yet, Fred.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So Tim, do you want to go through and do any updates?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything's going very, very well at the beach. Did we lose Lava Store? We don't have a quorum anymore?
No, he's there.
He's there. He's just
Okay.
turned the video off.
It's Tiny Mike.
Everything's going really well. Everybody's abiding by guidelines. So we had originally thought that moving into phase 2 would mean that we were going to go to 6 feet of distancing and possibly larger groups, but when they redid the guidelines on Saturday, everything remained the same as far as guidelines and regulations for the beach are concerned. We've continually been turning away a number of non-residents every day. The weekends seem to be somewhere between 150 and about 300 people that we do turn away. Right now, we're at about a third of our target sales for the year. We were just under $4,200 as of 5 o'clock today. So that is about a third of what we needed to cover our $11,000, I think it was $300 payroll for the month of June. So as I had mentioned in the last meeting, the $60 rate was really going to be kind of a killer for us. As far as, moving forward, I think at this point, with the amount of people who are showing up, with the amount of passes that we've sold, it might be worth it to reach out to non-residents who have bought passes in the past and offer it up to some sales there because the beach definitely, has the capacity to, have some more people coming to it on a daily basis. The other piece is, if we wanted to go the other route, we could offer up some day passes. We could limit the, pass per carload or, a pass per person. And we could limit the, time for the pass to a couple of hours so that if our, pass holders were coming and we saw an uptick, at least we had a set time for people to know that they had to go so that we were, keeping capacity. So this was something that we had originally talked about, and I just wanted to revisit and open it up for conversation as far as pass sales were concerned. And then I have a couple other updates that I'd like to, and things that I'd like to discuss.
I would like to. I would prefer offering the passes to out of town folks who have been pass holders in the past. They're familiar with the beach. They're, almost stakeholders in the beach or have been in the past, even though they don't live in town. I think that out of loyalty should be rewarded if they're past members. And like I said, they're familiar with the layout. You're not just going to have people of Carlo, the who knows, people coming in that aren't familiar with the layout of the beach. Maybe don't have a personal relationship with you, Tim, and some of the other folks that are at the beach, as well as other beach goers. I think that would kind of keep it as a community sort of feel. And I would rather reach out to them and see maybe, what the interest is, I guess.
Okay. Mike, did you have something?
No.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Am I frozen?
No, you're good.
Okay. It was just, I don't have anything else to add to that. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm open-minded for anything. I just wanted to throw out those two options for everybody. Like today was a perfect example. The beach was fairly calm, and, for day passes, it definitely was something that we could have thrown up on Facebook that, we had a certain number of passes available or whatever. So just wanted to keep you guys where we were at with that.
Fred, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you, Sean. I think offering it to people that have had it in the past before. Tim, if we're offering day passes and you put it up on Facebook, is there a way to are they going to reserve those then? So that we don't get people sort of coming to the beach and then finding out, well, you can't come out?
Yeah, so essentially what we would do is, hypothetically, we would say, hey, we have 4 spots available. First 4 people to comment, get the spot. And then, we would, 4 people, there we go. We take down the post and we know who's coming to see us, and they just come to Snack Shack and pay for their slot.
Are they past members, or just they could be somebody from, let's say, New York?
Not at this time.
So yes, to Mike's point, yes, if they were doing, well, you don't know that, but yes, to that point, if you did something on social media, yeah, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did, yeah.
I sort of have a problem with that.
I mean, you could restrict it to you have to be a Massachusetts resident if that's your concern or whatever. But yeah, there's ways to be specific about who can grab a spot.
Are you guys looking for a motion? I mean, you want to act on this, Tim? Something you'd like to, right? It's to cover the shortfall also, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now, like I said back in the meeting last week, it was, if we had the same number of resident pass sales as we did last year, we would have covered June, but it doesn't look like we're going to cover June right now. It looks like we're going to come up about halfway short. And, the statement was always that in order to cover the summer, we needed at least, if we sold everything resident-wise, we'd still need another $25,000 worth of revenue to cover our payroll. So
and Saul has his hand raised too, so if you would like to entertain Saul.
Who's the acting chair right now?
Technically, I guess Fred.
Okay.
How did that happen?
You've been in the role before.
Age before beauty.
And you don't want any more goat comments, Sean? All right, go ahead. Whoever, somebody's
go ahead.
Alicia, if you see somebody with their hand up, because I can't see anybody, just
correct.
Go and
that's why I let you know.
I'll acquiesce. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, can we limit it to Littleton residents?
Oh.
What limit what? And he just
Sorry,
muted.
Saul, I accidentally muted you because I was trying to lower your hand.
No problem. If you go to the offering day passes, could it be limited to Littleton residents? And do we are there any other restrictions from the Board of Selectmen or from somebody else that keep us to Littleton residents only right now?
That would be my preference for beach passes, day passes. I mean, I agreed with Sean and his proposal for, loyalty and pass on residents who are members, but, with so many beaches closed, I think you're going to run into I don't know. I'm just not there yet.
So right now, as it sits, we could do residents at $20 a pop, but we will be in a position in the next week or two to be deciding if we're going to stop and close the beach because we don't have enough money.
We could do both.
That's not really true.
Well,
Tim,
what do you mean?
Because we are going to town meeting to get the funding for, as long as it's approved. It has not been approved yet, but we are going to town meeting to get funding for that. And then July 1 starts our new fiscal year. So not necessarily true.
So my point is that we will be deficit spending by that point.
That is correct. So when we do go through this process with town meeting, we are kind of going back to essentially zero. And so, we will have to make the money back through passes that we sell and things like that. So yeah, for us to be able to operate and make it through the rest of the summer, we do need to be bringing some money in. So that is correct.
So in theory, we could do both, offer season passes to former out-of-town pass holders and day passes to just Littleton residents.
Correct. And you could do that.
I'm good with that.
I was just going to say your day passes, you don't have many residents. I don't know of any residents who have asked us for a day pass. We've gotten requests from non-residents because the out-of-town fee is $125. But at this point, we could definitely, I'm willing to try anything. I'm just letting you guys know that, there's going to be a deficit upon us very shortly.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you
because
looking at?
$20
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sean.
No, I was gonna say, so $20 for a day pass for a resident. If they're gonna come 3 times, it's almost doesn't make any sense to get a day pass where they could for $60 get a season pass and they can come whenever they want.
Correct. And then the other thing is, anybody, we allow the conversion. So if you come 3 times, you have your season pass anyway. So as far as that goes, that's not necessarily, yeah.
Okay.
What are you thinking in terms of volume for having day pass availability, Tim?
Like I said, it really would be on a day-to-day basis. Every day has been different. This morning, there was absolutely nobody at the beach. There were 3 people until about 2 o'clock, and then it got extremely busy. So, today would have been one of those days too. I forget who made the comment jokingly, if it's, I think it was Chase who said, oh, if it's a rainy day, people might actually want to come to the beach now. This morning when it was cloudy and we didn't have anybody there, that would have been a prime opportunity to say, hey, we have 2-hour slots available and, see where that goes and offer up another 2 hours at, 11 o'clock when we had the ability. And by 1 o'clock, when we started to see a pickup, all of the spots that we had given out for the day would have been moving on. So, like I said, I mean, we don't have to do it. I'm just trying to come up with ways that we can figure this out.
Let's see. Let's try it out with the seasonal passes for non-residents and try. I mean, we're going to be meeting again soon, I think, right? With possibly the pass.
Yeah.
So we can broach it again.
Okay. So do you guys want to should they make a vote to say that we're good with non-residents who have purchased a pass in the past? And are we going with just day passes for residents only? Is that what you guys said?
Yes. Yep.
Sounds good to me. I think we're ready for a motion, no?
Yep, go for it. Come on, Fred.
I can't make a motion if I'm running the meeting.
I know, but got to run the meeting.
Well, Sean said we're ready for a motion, so I didn't see. Okay, I didn't see any need to repeat what Sean just said. But okay, as Sean suggested, we're ready for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. That motion would say offer seasonal passes to season pass holders in previous years from out of town, and also start selling day passes on an availability basis to Littleton town residents in 2-hour blocks, or however Tim and Alicia see fit to allocate the times.
I second.
Sean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I might as well. Motion passes. That was a
All
good
right.
motion.
That was like non-committal, Fred.
So the next piece about that is, talking Snack Shack. We've been allowed to have the Snack Shack open since the last phase. We have not yet done so. Do we want to start selling stuff like ice cream? I spoke about this in the COVID working group today. The other option is to have somebody come in and possibly do a donation to us, like Dylan and Pete's Ice Cream, who comes the third Thursday because they have a Vitroller's license, and the earnest necessarily wouldn't be on us for doing all the extra cleaning and stuff. But it's pretty much the same transaction doing a beach pass as it is to hand somebody an ice cream. You're still taking a credit card and giving them either a card, in this case it would be an ice cream in exchange. Definitely the profitability is much better for us if we did stuff like that. But I just wanted to leave the decision up to you guys before we made any decisions on Snack Shack. We have a person in there anyway, so it just helps go towards paying for them.
What's the guidance, for something like this statewide?
The guidance is 2 sentences, and I don't know them off the top of my head. Basically, you just need to be compliant with all the normal food guidelines, and you're good to go. We're prepackaged foods. We're not hot or cold foods, so our guidelines are very restricted as far as, like, we need to have a hand washing sink. We have to be able to mop the floor, and things that we talked about today. We're possibly installing a piece of plexiglass to help with blocking the employee from there. And also I had mentioned about possibly putting stainless steel on instead of the Trex in front of the window, so we could wipe it down in between, uses. So that was really it. Jim Garaffi was on our call today. He was, good with whatever decision that we decided to make. So that's really just up to you guys as far as which direction you'd rather see us going.
I'm fine with it, for following the state guidelines, and especially if Jim feels, if he's comfortable with it. I mean, he's,
Okay.
he's the point person, right? So.
Yeah. So just to be clear, if you guys vote that you're okay to do it, what I will do is I will fill out our normal permit and request that the Board of Health issue us our food permit for the summer. And then once we have that permit in hand, we'll operate. So can you guys make a motion to that point?
Right, so we need a motion that we will open the Snack Shack upon approval of the permit by the Board of Health after it's submitted by Tim.
I make a motion to open the Snack Shack pending approval and getting the permit from the Board of Health.
Second.
All right, Sean?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes.
All right. Lastly, just to give everybody an update, we are in a position. We will start the sailing program on Monday. We're going to open registrations for that tomorrow. We have hired Hyatt Mayer and Zach Mercier, who are returning staff. Sailors will be in groups of 4 with 1 instructor. Everybody will have their own individualized boat for the duration of the week, as well as their own picnic table and supplies. And as we got from Jim Graffey today, he is perfectly fine with the kids wiping down their own boats with the proper sterilization products, which would be Lysol wipes in this case. It would be 1 child per boat. The only caveat to that would be if the children are in the same household, they may sail together. So if we have an experienced sailor and somebody who has never sailed before and they're in the same household, we would allow that to occur. Otherwise, everybody has to have prior sailing experience, i.e. they have to have one of our red books and have gone through our program. They have to have some sort of certification from a place like Sail Boston, or the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts have the merit badges and systems in place. So that'll be part of our process. We will give everybody equal opportunities. So if you come to sailing a week, you'll be waitlisted for the following week until we see if there's anybody else who wants to sign up for sailing. Any questions?
No, I have not. I'm looking at the guidelines here, so I'm good.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Last thing, we have one person in particular who has called us almost on a daily basis about the blue mats. I received a call from Diane Crory, who is the town clerk and also on the Disabilities Commission, about herself and George Sanders, conversations that they have had in regards to it. At this time, there's really very vague guidance on whether we can or cannot have the mats. I can't really, figure out one way or another. From an accessibility standpoint, I think if we were to put the mat back down, yes, it would take some real estate away from people sitting, but it would also prevent people sitting in the middle of the walkway and other people walking right through their 12-foot zone. The idea would be if we put the mats back down, we would do the one from Lakeshore to the parking lot, and we would do the one from the front of the beach house to the water. We would skip the other one that's over by the in front of the bicycle rack. But like I said, we do have one resident in particular who has on a daily basis been either calling or contacting us about it, and Diane Crory and drawing a blank now, George had Mr. Sanders had asked about it. So I told Diane I would mention it this evening and see what we could do. If you guys are comfortable doing it, I think it gets people accessibility. I do think that the one caveat, which was tough if we have people running back and forth on the beach, is that we recommend that people wear shoes while walking on the mat. But also, like I said, there's nothing that says in any guidelines that that's something we need to do.
And that's the part of the concern of why we've waited to put it out, is because of sanitization. It's something that, like playgrounds, it's just not feasible for us to do sanitization of the playground. So, this walkway, is it something that we're going to be able to keep clean? But Tim is correct. There's no guidelines that's out there. It was more of when we're making decisions to open the facilities, trying to keep as few surfaces that we have to worry about as possible. And that's one that we can kind of hold off until we get further guidelines. But we haven't up until this point. I have communicated with the family. I know Tim has, as others have as well. And we've offered, a seasonal pass to something we could take out of scholarship fund if they needed, as well as access to the water wheelchair if they wanted to drive down. So we have offered that. That offer will stay on the table as well, no matter what you guys decide. But that's kind of where we are at and why the mats have not gone out yet. Yeah, Sean.
So sanitization is the kind of issue about not putting the mats down. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, we don't know it is though at this point, right? Because there aren't any guidelines.
Correct.
But
So
that's
the only guideline that The only guideline that would apply to this is that walkways would have to be one directional because of the lack of the ability to socially distance. So the only sign that we would be required to have is if somebody's coming the other direction, you need to wait your turn. Or you need to step off the mat. Or you need to wear a mask. Those would be the guidelines. That was the only restriction on walkways, was they had to be one directional if social distancing couldn't be enforced.
I would just put the mats down. And I mean, if nothing else, it shows inclusivity.
I agree with you.
In today's world, I think that's a win. So
yep.
I'm all for that too, but just as a devil's advocate, and I don't believe this to be the case, what would make them more of a health risk than just if, say, you had a wooden walkway down there, or you put something else, or just walking across the parking lot?
There is none.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to get that out into the open so somebody doesn't come back and say, well, you ignored this risk.
The only reason, so there's two reasons they haven't been put down yet. Number one, we didn't know, well, three. One, we didn't know if we were going to open the beach, so there was no reason to put them out if we didn't open. Number two, the social distance guideline that was put out there for walkways. And number three was, I don't even know what number three was at this point, but I do not see any reason. Sanitization, yeah. But I do not see any reason that we shouldn't do this, because it's I think it's such a benefit to even the daily walkers across the beach.
And that's the thing. I mean, if we have staff down there that's managing, and that's something that, we can have those conversations because we actually have people down there. Again, that's more of a win to be able to get it on, put your shoes on, wait your turn. We just have to have those conversations.
Okay. So you don't need a vote though, right?
No.
Okay.
No, just wanted to make sure, in case we get any calls, that you guys are good to go.
Yep.
Make it so.
All right. It'll happen tomorrow.
Okay.
And that's it. I'll keep you guys posted on kind of where we're at, and we'll make those changes, and hopefully everything will be good that way.
Hey, John.
Is Kaz back?
Mr. Kasanjian.
Yep.
You want to share your news?
Yeah, we got approval from the Board of Health to operate Camp T, 4-1 vote. That they won't. It still has to go through Jim Garaffi, the health agent. That's kind of how it normally is every year. Normally, Jim reviews our documents and then grants us a license based on our policies and procedures, and that we're in compliance with our normal guidelines. So it's still in Jim's hands to, instead of it having to go to a vote to the Board of Health later, it's just going to be up to Jim. And, if Jim doesn't see fit that we can operate with the policies I've submitted to him, then he won't grant us a license to operate. So technically we have the board's approval. We just don't have Jim's approval yet until we've met the guidelines that came out on June 1st and was revised on June 6th. So slightly revised. The only thing that they wanted to make sure that we did was the temperature checks upon them. There was a guideline that said every kid had to have a temporal check every day as they enter with the laser temperature check. That guideline was removed on the 6th. They felt they would feel more comfortable if it was put into our town guidelines. And, it's basically the guidelines that I submit to them for approval. Once they've submitted those policies and procedures, that's what becomes the camp rule. So, oh, nice. Sorry. So that's where we're at with that. It's a good sign for us to be able to operate come June 29th.
Good job.
All right.
Well done, Kaz.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. A million questions.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
You had a million answers.
Hey, that's great, Kaz. I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, hold on.
I second.
I withdraw the motion.
So we don't have any old business. I'll skip ahead. But new business, we always end up changing our office hours for summer operations. So I'm suggesting, and you guys can discuss, I'm suggesting that we start on Monday, June 29th, which would be the first day of camp, that we would have office hours Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then we would return to normal office hours. I guess that's not really written right. But the end of those, no, that's written right. Normal office hours until Monday, August 17th, because the last program for Camp T, the last day is the 14th, which is a Friday. So, with this town hall still not open to the public, the town is working really hard to try to figure out how to reorganize our very cluttered space, and not just our department, everybody's departments, to be able to get just the staff back into work. So it's going to take a little bit of time before we're all back in the office again. I'm pretty certain, but I'd rather do this, have this discussion, get it on the books, and be ready to go when we are back up and running, rather than just forgetting to do it. So, it's an important piece of our operations. So, yeah, Tim.
After this motion, we do have one update that I think is important for the guys for camp.
Oh, okay.
We got an email today that needs to be addressed.
Oh.
All right. Well, do we have a motion to change the summer? Sorry, Alicia. Do we have a motion to change the summer office hours?
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion to change the summer office hours to Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., starting on Monday, June 29th. Returning to normal office hours on Monday, August 17th.
A second.
All right. Sean?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Go ahead, Tim.
Kaz, you want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we would. Oh, nice, Chris. Sorry. It was just an email from Steve, and they're asking us to pay for water this summer at camp instead of, at least as far as he asked us, have you figured out water access yet? We could probably run a hose from the school. We can do a before water meter reading, and then after end of summer water meter read, and we can bill Park and Rec for that water use.
So we've never paid for water in the past, and I just wanted to make you guys aware that this is, this came to John today, and that why I had you guys, I wanted you guys to be aware that this is something that's going on. Especially with the increased hand washing, this is...
Well, have you brought it to their attention that you haven't paid for it in the past, and why the change of policy?
Nope.
I'd start there. To me, they'd have to have a good reason.
Those are pretty cool. Don't come over to this meeting. This is important. Go.
We already saw him.
Too late.
Anyway, I don't think we're going to fix that problem tonight, but knowing that camp may start before we have our next opportunity to meet, which probably not with the youth sports stuff, I just wanted everybody to be aware of that, because that's going to be something that we're going to have to address starting tomorrow.
The school's no longer part of the town?
No, they are.
Oh, so... All right, I just was curious.
That was sarcasm.
I'm aware.
She knows me well enough, John. I just wanted to...
They've never asked us for that ever in the past, and we've used plenty of water. I don't know, maybe they think we're going to use way more water than ever. I don't know.
And this request is from the school department or the water department?
The school department, Steve Mark from the school department. This isn't a conversation we had on email. We've been bouncing around some questions and answers that I was looking for some guidance so I can write it into the policies and procedures that I have to present to the, well, I did sort of present it to the Board of Health, but in the end, I'll have to give it to the health agent, Jim Garaffi, for a final approval to operate this summer. But these are details that are asked for and to be called out for on, the question about paying for water is not on there. It's access to water, access to water, water hand washing stations, access to different rooms I was asking for. And I'm actually going to be in the building tomorrow at 8:30 with Bill Maher just to look at dimensions to make sure that our square footage requirements are going to be met, and talk to him about some of my plans as far as what more or less what we're being asked to do. And one of the things we're being asked to do is put a grid on the floor and give every kid their own spot on the floor, kind of like Tim's Beach, with putting out rectangles or squares. And it's one of the things that I have to go through with him about what we can put down on the ground and what we can't. And so, but the water thing's never been an issue. I don't know, maybe you've been waiting for a reason to ask.
John, just to clarify, they want us to pay for any water that's used in the school?
He says they'll take a water. So he asked us, have you figured out water access yet? We could probably run a hose from the school. This is to the outdoor tented groups for hand washing. We can do a before water meter reading and an after end of summer meter read, and we can bill PRCE for that use. I don't know where their meter is. I assume their meter reads all of the water for the entire summer. I don't know if they'll have a specific meter set up on a hose that they can hook up to our garden hoses that run water out to the fields. That's to be clarified, I suppose.
Okay, because otherwise, then any usage in the school is going to come to us, correct?
Otherwise, yeah.
If there's a single meter, then yes, that would be the case.
I guess I should ask them if we're using the water meter that is read for their general water billing purposes, or if they're going to add one somewhere else for just outside water use. I can ask that question for sure. And when I'm there tomorrow, I'll have, more information, but.
Great.
All right, Kaz, you and I can talk about this a little bit more tomorrow and figure out what we're going to do. All right, so thanks for bringing that up. And then just a reminder, Springtown meeting is this Saturday at Alumni Field at 8 a.m., bright and early in the morning. Just in case there's bad weather, rain date is Sunday the 14th at 11 a.m. We have two articles, 13 and 14, so both referring to our budget this year and getting a deficit covered, and what our budget will be for next year. So there you go.
That should be the 13th.
Oh, did I put the 12th? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Saul. 13th. Don't show up on Friday the 12th. All right. Old business, you got nothing. There you go. I'll leave that there.
I make another motion to adjourn.
And I make another second.
Sean,
Yes, sir.
Mike,
Yep.
I'm I as well. We are now adjourned at whatever time it is, 9:29.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
I've now been at this desk for 18 and a half hours today.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I did run to Arlington, so I did get a little break.